baseball.
Oh, with the big mic. Oh, okay. All right, yeah. Okay, now I get it.
We had a lightning strike, boys. What happened over there, Grego? We had a little lightning strike right outside the window.
The Texas Rangers win the World Series.
All right. Here's a tip for all these Americano League teams.
Wait, you said tip.
Yeah, tip.
Okay.
With a P.
Keep jamming.
The ticket colon, nothing but a big Gen X jerk-off sake.
This is a cool night or what?
Although somebody would hear that and go, bullshit.
I'm back, bitches.
And we're back. Did you really think we would not be? Got to tell you, I was on the bubble there for a little while. I was all ready to let this thing dry up and blow away into the ether. But no, did not happen. We are back. It is your dark companion. Once again, coming off a little downtime for the holidays, but now it's time to get back into the swing of this thing and roll on. We got the whole crew, or most of it anyway, assembled here today. Shoopy is here. Hi, Shoopy.
Hi, Shoopy. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Ashley is here. Becca is here. And look who we have to start the year off. I can scarcely think of anybody I would rather have, because I guess everybody has people in their scene, people in their orbit who defy description, who are amazingly well-rounded, people who know a little bit about a lot of things, or maybe know a lot about a few things. Well, there are also those who know a lot about a lot of things, and we've got one of those with us today. He is a guy well known to everybody because he's been around here for a long time and occupied a place of prominence for a long time. He is the great Eric Nadel, the Hall of Fame voice of the Texas Baseball Rangers. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me. First guest of the year.
Yes, you are the first guest of the year.
I am honored. This is great. This is an incredible setup. Three cameras, lights.
Yeah.
Microphones everywhere.
Yeah. We try to make it look sufficiently cluttered, like we've really got something going on here. I like things that look cluttered because it does make it look like there's a lot going on here.
So much happening.
Keep tabs on, you know.
Are you sure you're legally zoned for this here in the M streets?
I'm not sure I'm legally zoned for it.
It's someone else's problem.
Yeah, it's somebody else's problem. Nobody's blown the whistle on us yet, although the neighbors don't particularly care for the fact that we do have a preponderance of cars out here for a couple hours, a couple days a week, but so far, nobody's really thrown down big over it.
No, they blew the whistle on us.
Okay, well, they'll get over it. It's not that big of a thing, really. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. I love this time of year. I really enjoy my time off. I love the job, but I love this time of year too. I get to go to a lot of shows, and it's been a really active off season for me in that regard.
To wit, what?
Well,
what shows have you seen?
I've been to the Sphere. Let's start with that. To see the Eagles. It was my second show at the Sphere. I saw the Dead as well.
Yep.
I highly recommend it for all music fans. It is an immersive, intense experience, unlike anything else. Have you been yet?
I have not. Now, I have been to Cosm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's anything like it, but I have been to that. And we went to the Atmosphere show that Tim DeLauder of the Polyphonic Spree put on. And that's as close as I've gotten to the Sphere.
Yeah,
but I hear a lot of great things about it.
It's spectacular. It's like seeing a rock show in a planetarium where instead of being surrounded by the stars, you're surrounded by shots of the band and whatever other video magic they decide to display. You know, the Dead show was very psychedelic, a lot of animation and crazy stuff like that, which was clearly dreamed up by people on, you know, extreme substances. The Eagles show was much more conventional, but you knew every single song and was performed flawlessly. I hadn't seen them since Vince Gill joined the band, and he was tremendous. So the whole thing was great. So that's probably been the highlight of all the shows that I've seen. But I've seen dozens of them since the baseball season ended.
Were you a big, or are you a big Dead guy? We never talked about that.
You know, I wouldn't say I was a big Dead guy. I've seen him several times going back to college. I think the first time I saw him was in 1969 or 1970. But my number one Dead experience was almost getting Nolan Ryan to go to a Grateful Dead concert. I really was close. We were on our way to Comiskey Park one day in the bus, and the Dead were playing at Soldier Field the next night. It was on a Saturday when we had a day game. And Nolan saw all the tents and crazy stuff outside, and you know, he said, "Now I wonder what that is." And so I explained to him what it was, all about the Dead and stuff like that. And he said, "Well, what kind of music is that?" And you know, at the time they were playing the American Beauty and the Working Man's Dead album, which are kind of country-ish. And I figured, you know, Nolan would actually like those two albums. I don't know how much he would like the rest of their stuff. But I said, you know, Nolan, I think you'd like their music. And this was before, you know, I could quickly send him a video on his phone for him to check out. He was just going to have to believe me. And he said, he said, "Are you going?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going." He said, "Well, I'll think about that. I'll tell you tomorrow." And then the next day on the bus on the way to Comiskey Park for the day game, he said, "Nah, I don't really want to deal with crowds. I think I'll pass on that." But I really thought I had a shot.
Yeah, it sounds like you did have a shot.
Yeah, I tried.
So what other shows have you enjoyed in your downtime?
Well, New Year's, I made a trip to Chicago to see my number one favorite band, Lake Street Dive. You're familiar with them?
No, I am not.
Okay, they're a band from New York. They've been around since 2006, and they're kind of a combination of rock and jazz. With an incredible female singer named Rachel Price, who's my favorite female voice. And they were doing two shows at a new venue in Chicago called the Salt Shed, which used to be a Morton salt factory. Wow. And it's been converted to about a 4,000-seat venue.
Where's it at?
It's on the west side of Chicago. I don't really know that part of town. People were telling me that area is called West Town, or Ukrainian Village. It's over there, and the two shows were incredible.
Is this
there you go.
A little of them?
This is one of the songs that Eric recommended when I was doing the music for the Rangers. He would, about every homestand, send me a little list of songs, and yeah, this is "Know That I Know" by Lake Street Dive.
That's my all-time favorite song of theirs.
Well, I'm not surprised by this, but I dig it.
Yeah.
Another great music recommendation from Eric. He's full of them.
It's incredible.
They've got a new song called "Dance with a Stranger," and during the live shows, she pulls people out of the stands to come up on stage and dance with her, to dance with a stranger. And that's what they were playing New Year's Eve as the clock struck 12. Everybody in the place was dancing with strangers and non-strangers alike. But it was really festive. It was a great way to spend the New Year.
Wow, that sounds like fun. Well, it's not going to be too terribly long before the bell rings once again. You getting? Do you have to ramp up for it every year, or is there kind of a process that you go through to get your head right for what's about to come down here?
It actually kind of happens organically when spring training actually starts. You know, I won't go until March the 1st. The pitchers and catchers will show up on the 12th or the 14th. And once we start getting the stories from Surprise, I start getting really fired up about it. Now, I think what might happen this year, when the Rangers complete their off-season acquisitions, I think I might get pumped up a little bit earlier, because right now I'm really, really optimistic and very excited about what they've done so far. And just assuming that they're going to fill out this bullpen, with 2 late inning guys. Mm-hmm. And then who knows, maybe we wind up with Sasaki, probably not, but who knows,
Still in the hunt.
Could
You're in the
happen
hunt until they tell you you're not.
But even without him, once they fill out the bullpen, I think they're going to be, if not favored to win the division, at least expected to be fighting for it all year.
What'd you think about the Peterson acquisition?
I was amazed by the stuff he said.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew can be kind of a loose cannon, but he's going to be really refreshing to have around, and to have, that kind of a pedigree, have a left-handed power hitter like that, and a guy who can DH and has proven that he can DH, because that role kind of spooks some people.
Yeah.
Very optimistic about that.
A lot of people were talking about how the Rangers need and did not have last year, and really do need a personality like that on the team. Agree?
I don't know how necessary it is when you go back to the year before. Who did they have who was a big personality the year they won the World Series?
That's what I thought of too.
They won without it that year. So I think that kind of thing tends to get overblown a little bit. And he's actually coming in and replacing Nathaniel Lowe, who had one of the biggest personalities on the team.
Yeah.
And was probably the funniest guy on the team, and the guy was the most fun for us to interview. So I think they're okay in that regard.
One thing people have been on me about is, one guy hit me with an email the other night talking about how they're saying that the great thing about Peterson is that he can hit a fastball. And this took me back to a conversation I had long ago with Doug Melvin, because I can't remember who this was, but the Rangers had just acquired a guy, and they said that one of the really appealing things about him was that he can hit a fastball. And I thought, now wait a minute. If you're in the major leagues, you can hit a fastball. I mean, right? And I asked Doug about that one day, and he says, no, what I meant was that you can hit the Randy Johnson fastball, or you can hit a really, really good upper-tier fastball. The guys who have the best ones in the league, you can hit those. That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, a Julio Franco type of guy.
Right. Exactly. So I didn't know if I was in love with the idea of them getting a guy who was pretty much just DH and carried no defensive value at all. But the more I hear from the guy, and the more I learn about him, and the more I think about it in that context, the more I like it. And the more excited I am about it.
He does have an edge that they haven't had that can be pretty valuable. Based on the comments about taking over the division, the pretty ample proof of that. You just have to look at the numbers last year to see how abysmal the Rangers were in DH production.
Yeah.
I mean, they were down there 28th, 29th, 30th in the major leagues in almost every offensive category from the DH. And, this whole idea of giving guys a partial day rest is very nice. But when you're not getting any production out of that, when all of your guys are much better as position players than DHs, the whole idea really doesn't work that well. And, one of the things Bruce Bochy said to me at the end of the season, in just chatting, not a formal interview, about what he'd like to see, in 2025, is to have a legitimate DH where he wouldn't have to worry about whether that spot's going to be a dead zone again.
Yeah. Shall we go through a page from Eric Nadel's past?
Sure.
I'd really like to do that.
All right.
Now, you grew up in New York.
In Brooklyn, New York, yes.
And how did you first become aware of the game of baseball? I mean, I would imagine that up there back then, because, we're roughly the same age here. And back then, it was pretty much everywhere.
was Brooklyn Dodgers. Gil Hodges, the first baseman for the Dodgers, lived around the corner from us. I went to school with his kid, Gil Jr. I think I got my first baseball glove as a gift from my Uncle Norman when I was 3 or 4 years old, and started playing catch. My dad took me to Ebbets Field for my 6th birthday in 1957. I saw the Dodgers play the Milwaukee Braves, and the number 2 hitter for the Braves, a skinny right fielder, went 4 for 5 with a homer and drove in 4 runs, and that was Hank Aaron. Mm-hmm. And I remember asking my dad, how does that skinny guy hit the ball that far? And he explained to me it's all in the wrists. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with it. Totally fell in love with the game, seeing that game on May the 6th, 1957, and that's really when I became a fanatic.
Who explained the game of baseball to you?
My dad did, and I also got kind of sneaked into Little League before I should have been allowed in. It's the only time I ever saw my dad lie, Rhynes. He actually wrote the wrong birth date on my Little League application so I could get off his back about playing baseball and get into Little League when I was 7 instead of 8, or whatever the allowable age was. And getting into Little League too, the coaches there taught us more about the actual mechanics of the game. And there was no T-ball then. There was no coach pitch then.
Right.
Us kids pitched to each other, and the guy who could throw the ball over the plate was the pitcher.
Yeah.
So that you wouldn't just have a stream of people walking around the bases.
Man, I probably romanticized this in my own mind far too much. But I just can't imagine what New York must have been like, where you had the Dodgers and Ebbets Field, you had the Giants and the Polo Grounds, and you had the Yankees and Yankee Stadium Senior, which is my favorite ballpark of all time, and I just really regret that I never got to go.
It was phenomenal, and the feelings were so intense. Both of my parents were, really intense Brooklyn Dodger fans. They despised the Yankees because the Yankees had beaten the Dodgers in all those World Series, with the exception of 55. The Yankees won every year. The first year I was acutely aware of what was going on was 1957. And that whole Willie, Mickey, and the Duke thing was raging back then. It's hard to believe, but the Brooklyn Dodger fans actually thought Duke Snider was the equal or superior to Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays, which when you look at the numbers is, kind of absurd.
Right.
But the Duke was our guy and we loved him. And, the feelings of love for him were just as strong as the Yankee fans for Mickey or the Giants fans for Willie.
What announcers did you listen to? This is a pretty golden time for that, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I don't recall ever listening to Vin Scully doing the Dodgers, and the Dodgers moved at the end of the 57 season. Yeah. So I had 1 year of enjoying the Brooklyn Dodgers. Then they were gone. And so all we had then was the Yankees until the Mets came in. So Mel Allen and Red Barber were the Yankees announcers, soon to be joined by Phil Rizzuto and Jerry Coleman. But Mel Allen and Red Barber are the two who I remember the most. And I remember Mel Allen being so friendly, so warm and friendly. You really felt like he was your buddy.
Yeah.
And Red Barber, on the other hand, was much more businesslike, much less personality. Even though he opened up the broadcasts by saying, "Hi, friends, Red Barber here." I didn't feel like he was my friend the way that Mel Allen was. Mel was kind of a warm, open, garrulous guy, and he wore his emotions on his sleeve, where Red Barber was the classic journalist, where he wasn't going to voice an opinion at all, or you didn't even know whether they were winning or losing if you tuned in and Red was on. You knew with Mel.
Yeah.
If they were winning or losing based on the tone of his voice.
People tell me that you have explained the game of baseball to them. So many people have told me that over the years, that they've learned about the game of baseball from you. And did you learn it from either of those guys or any of those guys? Or Was it that kind of thing back then?
No, not really. You know, the broadcasts then didn't have the kind of analysis that they have now. Part of it is the game moved so fast. They didn't really have too much time to do that. But there wasn't an emphasis on that. There wasn't an emphasis on color and analysis. The announcers pretty much, worked on their own. The first time I really remember learning about the game from an announcer was when the Mets came in, and they actually had an ex-player in Ralph Kiner, who was the analyst, on their broadcasts, and you started getting into some of the technicalities of the game from him. But honestly, when I got this job in 1979, having been a hockey announcer and never having broadcast baseball, I needed a crash course in a lot of aspects of the game. And I was really lucky that, guys like Buddy Bell and Jim Sundberg, Sonny in particular, were willing to kind of take me under their wing and answer all of the stupid questions that I had. And it was an endless list.
Now, what was your first connection to Dallas-Fort Worth? It was hockey, right?
It was hockey, yeah. I was in Oklahoma City broadcasting Central Hockey League games for the Oklahoma City Blazers, the Toronto Maple Leafs AAA club.
Now, was your eye always on baseball?
My eye was always on hockey. When I was growing up.
Really?
When I was growing up, I was in love with Marv Albert doing the Ranger games. New York Ranger games. And people would ask me what I'm going to do when I grew up, and I would tell them I'm going to be the radio announcer for the Rangers. And I meant the New York Rangers.
You weren't wrong.
Just wasn't quite specific enough. But I wanted to do hockey in college. I did 4 years of college hockey, and then I worked my way up through various minor league jobs to get here. But I was in Oklahoma City thinking that, I was just a step away from the major leagues. When the Maple Leafs decided they were losing too much money in Oklahoma City and they were going to come down to Dallas and split a minor league team with the Chicago Blackhawks, who already had the Dallas Blackhawks playing here at Fair Park. And so the teams decided they would split their minor league operation. And fortunately for me, the guy who was broadcasting the Dallas Blackhawks games, a guy named Frank Falesi, decided that he was going to leave the world of hockey and start his own PR agency.
Yeah.
So I was able to come down here, get the job, become the PR director and the radio voice of the Dallas Blackhawks. And that was 1976. And that's how I wound up being in Dallas to begin with.
And how did you get from there to the Rangers?
Well, that was a really weird story. I did 2 years of Dallas Blackhawks hockey, and then the parent clubs, the Maple Leafs and the Blackhawks, decided to move the team to Moncton, New Brunswick. And I was in Muskegon, Michigan, when I first got out of college, where it snowed every day. And I couldn't imagine a place with worse weather than that until I heard about Moncton, New Brunswick. And so I told them, I don't think I want to go to Moncton, New Brunswick. And they said, well, we can't take you anyway. We have to hire all Canadians there. So start looking for a job. So I was sending out my hockey tapes to, all the minor league teams and all the NHL teams. I thought I was ready for an NHL job, and I was actually a finalist at that time, one of 5 finalists for the Chicago Blackhawks job. And out of nowhere, I got a call from Roy Parks, who was running the Rangers network, actually for the city of Arlington at that time. They owned the rights.
And you didn't know him?
No, I'd never met him. I had never met any of their announcers, and he told me that Bill Merrill, one of their guys, one of their announcers, was going to retire in a year or two. They were looking for somebody to replace him and also to fill in on 30 games that were on TV when they needed a color man on TV. And he wanted to hear a tape. And of course, I'd never done baseball. I lied and said that I did, but I didn't have a tape. So he let me do 4 games into a cassette recorder in the blue box at the old stadium, at Arlington Stadium, that auxiliary press box down the right field line.
Oh, I know it well.
They gave me a set of stats and some commercials to read to make believe I was on the air, and turned me loose for 4 games between the Rangers and the Oakland A's late in that season, in the 78 season.
Yeah.
And based on that, they hired me to start the following year. They never publicized that a job was open. You know, they were really a low-budget operation. And one of the reasons I got hired, Rhines, is they had another job open selling advertising. And I told them that if they hired me to do the broadcasts, I would also do the advertising job. Because in minor league hockey, you'd always done both.
That's what you did.
I was used to doing it. And even though major league announcers generally didn't do that, they loved the idea of filling two jobs with one person, not having to pay moving expenses. Right. And, you know,
There's
having
a lot to like about this situation.
Exactly. And somebody who was making at that time $15,000, which in 1976 was plenty to live comfortably, but not exactly a fortune. And so I took the two jobs and more than doubled my income. And all of a sudden, I was a major leaguer. And then, as it turned out, I didn't get the Chicago Blackhawks job anyway. So I was very happy to be in the employ of the Texas Rangers, not have to worry about moving.
So how long were you in the sales aspect of that?
I think I did it for 4 years. And then after that, the rights had changed and WBAP bought the rights. And so they didn't really need me to sell. They had a sales staff. And once they took over the sales, I was off the hook.
Was WBAP the flagship station from the start?
No, actually KRLD was, I think, for the first couple of years. But WBAP was from about 1974 on. Yeah, and when I came aboard at the end of the 78 season, it was WBAP. But they didn't actually own the rights until, I think, 1982, 83.
Were you nervous before your first game?
Oh, I was beyond nervous. John Miller jokes about this because he was my partner on the first telecast from Fort Myers between the Rangers and the Royals. And I had actually driven over to Fort Myers a couple of days before that to scout the Royals and do a bunch of preparation and spend some time talking to Whitey Herzog. And then when we actually did the game, it was a crazy game. It was at 9-8 or 10-9. And all of the number, 97 and 98s got into the game. And I had something on every one of those guys. I had a legal pad that was just brimming with stupid information about every one of those guys. And John said it was like I had studied for a final and, hadn't read any of the books, but spent the last 48 hours just in a crash course, and I was petrified. Then when the regular season began, my first game was opening day, which was in Detroit on a Saturday afternoon. It was very cold. It was an open-air press box, and I was trying to be really cool because I was going to be on TV as well as radio that day. We used to go back and forth. And so all I had on was my leather sport jacket, and it got really cold. The sun got covered up by clouds. It got windy. Frank Gleber was working on TV that day with me. And I had to go down to the field after the game to interview Fergie Jenkins, who had fortunately pitched a complete game in about 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Yes, as he was known for.
And I was so nervous that right before the ninth inning, I ran to the men's room. And as I was pulling up my zipper, it broke. I could not shut my fly. And I'm about to go down to the field where they're going to have full-length shots of Fergie Jenkins and me. So I came back to the booth, and right before we went on the air for the ninth inning, I said to Frank, Frank, I need to borrow your trench coat. Please, let me borrow your trench coat. So he had, this big Hank Stram and Andy Granatelli, off-white trench coat, the Columbo model, and he gave it to me, which was about 5 sizes too big. And I went down to the field and interviewed Fergie Jenkins wearing that oversized trench coat, and that was my introduction to Major League regular season.
Any video of this exists?
I hope not. I really hope
so.
And in fact, I've got some tapes of my first couple of years of work, and they really embarrassed me. It sounded like baseball on skates. I did not have the pacing down at all. There was an urgency in my voice that you have in hockey that you don't have in baseball that needed to be gotten rid of. And it took a couple of years before I was able to master that.
I've always heard from a lot of people, And I don't know, maybe we've had a conversation about this. I don't think we have, but maybe we have. But I've always heard that you worked a lot on your voice.
I did.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
And that seems strange to a lot of people because now, I mean, you're the voice of baseball around here. And it wouldn't be the same with anybody else.
Yeah, this isn't what I sounded like when I was 27 years old and I got this job. My voice hadn't changed yet. And in fact, there were people in the Ranger front office who wanted to get me fired after my first year on the job because they didn't like listening to my voice. So I took voice lessons. I worked really hard at controlling my voice so that when I got excited, it didn't get real shrill. Mm-hmm. I didn't get up into the higher registers. A lot of singing, a lot of vocal exercises, a lot of warm-up, all of which I fortunately don't have to do anymore. But at some point, when I was about 31 or 32, my voice started changing. And my father had a really pleasant voice. And around that time, I started sounding like my father. And at that point, everything had kind of smoothed out, and the voice was really no longer an issue.
What did you sound like before that? Did you sound like me?
I sounded like a 15-year-old kid pretending to be a sports announcer.
Okay, so more or less, yeah.
So how long do you think it took you to really settle in?
Maybe the first year that I worked with Mark Holtz, which was my fourth year, 1982.
Yeah.
I think that's really when it happened. And I learned so much from him, from just watching and listening to the way that he did it. And I think that's when I realized that you can let your personality come out. In fact, it's really important to let your personality come out, to have some warmth in your voice so that people listen to you and they feel like you're happy to be there and like you're a buddy sitting with them just watching the game. And that's really what you shoot for as a baseball announcer. And I think it was about 1983 that I'd gotten the pacing to the point where people could comfortably listen, you know, without it being a little too edgy, as Holtz used to say.
Yeah, yeah. Boy, you and Mark were really a fantastic team together.
Thanks. It was so much fun, you know, and he was so open to having a sidekick like me, who was, you know, extremely participatory. And again, it was at a time where still most announcers on radio were pretty much working alone and not bantering back and forth.
Yeah.
But what happened was in 1982, the first year that Mark and I were together, and remember, Mark had done the Mavericks, the first year of the Mavericks, and then the Rangers hired him away. He had always wanted to be a baseball announcer. And in spring training, we did 29 games out of the 32. And we drove all over Florida. And some of the road trips were 5-6 hours. And we really got to know each other well. And you know, our boss, Roy Parks, told us not to treat these games like they were brain surgery. They're just spring training games, so you don't have to make believe these are really important games. There's not a lot of drama. Have a good time. And, you know, we really think you guys are a good combination, that the chemistry will be really good. So just, you know, have a good time. And so we did. In spring training, we goofed around. You know, Mark was married. I was single. He was always giving me a hard time about the women I was dating or attempting to date and how late I'd been out the night before. And, you know, in Pompano Beach, it was often 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we had so much fun during those 29 spring training games. When we came back, and they called us into the office and said, we want you to keep doing that in the regular season. Just keep having fun.
Yeah.
And the Rangers were supposed to be really good that year, but of course that was the year that they traded Ron Darling and Walt Tyrrell for Lee Mazzilli, and they traded Al Oliver for Larry Parrish and Dave Hostetler, and they wound up losing 12 straight games in May and getting the general manager fired, and eventually the manager fired, and it was a nightmare of a season. But because we were having fun and doing kind of these offbeat goofball broadcasts, everybody loved it. And I think that really allowed me to have the confidence going forward that, you know, I actually belonged in that job. It probably wasn't until then that I felt that maybe I had a future as a baseball announcer. I had continued doing hockey in the off seasons, because I felt at some point I would certainly get fired by the Rangers, and I would need to fall back on my hockey background, and I finally gave that up in '82.
You mentioned the chemistry between you and Mark. Anytime you're doing anything in any kind of broadcasting scene and you're doing it with somebody else, that is so incredibly important. I mean, you got to have it, and you got to be able to develop it, because it does take time. It doesn't happen overnight. And through the years since then, you've had to do this with a few other guys. What would you say to somebody else who is in that situation where they're trying to develop chemistry with somebody else that they may or may not know particularly well?
Well, the obvious thing is to spend some time with them away from the booth. Get to know their personality, just as a regular person.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And then be willing, to talk about the things that are going well and not going well. When Mark decided to move over to TV and the rights went from WBAP to KRLD, Brad Sham became my partner.
Yeah.
He had his little spiff with Barry Switzer and had left the Cowboys. And I had, Brad and I knew each other, but really just casually. I loved him as an announcer. And, he and I, took some time to get the chemistry down. But by spending more and more time together, and it was the same sort of thing. We're in Florida, driving to all these godforsaken places around the state of Florida, during a time when there was a lockout, and they were playing with a bunch of baristas from Starbucks wearing Major League Baseball uniforms in spring training. But we really got to know each other well. And by the time the regular season started, I think we already had a head start on the chemistry. The one partner who I had where the chemistry was difficult to develop was with Victor Rojas. There's a big difference in age. And Victor was not trained as a baseball announcer. He was a player, a minor league player, who had, kind of fallen into broadcasting. And, it took a while for us to get to know each other. And we had very different styles of preparation, very different styles on the air. But, eventually it clicked. And, he became as much fun to work with as anybody else I've been with.
What about Vince?
Oh, Vince was great. Vince was really easy. I knew Vince because Vince was working for the Astros, and I'd gotten to know him. That was a very seamless transition. He's also very much like me in the way he prepares. He works the locker room better than anybody who I've ever worked with, and he and I had the same sort of philosophy on how to do the job.
Yeah. Vince, for those who may not know, is Vince Catronio, who was in that job for how long?
I think 7 years.
Yeah.
And then a guy named Michael Kramer, who was the Rangers president for, I think, less than a year, decided that he wanted me to work with an ex-player and fired Vince. Otherwise, completely competent, extraordinary announcer, but who wasn't an ex-player. And Vince got fired later to get a job doing the Oakland A's, and they hired Victor Rojas as the ex-player, even though he hadn't been a major league player. He was a player, and his dad, of course, Cookie Rojas, was a big name player.
Yeah. That's just one of those things that if it's not there, it's obvious to everybody. And I've experienced it myself along my road in the radio game. You got to have it, man.
Yeah,
you
know
got
what?
To have it.
And what was really hard was when Brad was my partner. Brad was doing Sunday night football, NFL football for Westwood One.
Yeah.
And so he would leave during the football season. He would leave every weekend and miss the Saturday and Sunday game. And we had a variety of fill-ins. And those I found to be really difficult to sound smooth with, even though they were really good announcers. Ted Davis did some of the games, later to become a terrific NBA announcer.
Right.
Bill Schoening, who was already a great NBA announcer, doing the Spurs and doing UT at the time, he did a lot of the games as well. And even though they're both really good announcers, we didn't really have the time to get acclimated the way that I did with, the regular partners.
Yeah. Well, this is all well and good for the game of baseball, but there is much, much more to this man than the game of baseball. First of all, you care about the good puppy dog, don't you?
Oh, I love the dogs. I do. Mine's in Colorado right now. I really miss him. But we always had dogs from the time I can remember. A lot of my earliest memories revolve around the dogs we had when I was a little kid. And, I've been active in various dog causes. Mm-hmm. I actually raised the money to build the dog park at White Rock Lake. Mm-hmm. I'm really proud of that. It was the first dog park in North Texas. At the time, I think the only one in Texas was in Austin, and it wasn't fenced. So I believe we had the first fenced dog park anywhere in Texas. Mm-hmm. That was about 1999, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And the Munster Dog Food Company, the Munster Milling Company, mm-hmm. Donated the money to build the fence. And that's what allowed us to have the dog park to begin with. And Nolan Ryan was the spokesman then for Munster. And he came out, and when the dog park opened, he threw out the first ball. and about 30 dogs chased it.
That's great.
Also, you've been honored by your high school, your alma mater, Midwood High School of Brooklyn. They created the Eric Nadel Memorial Award for athletic improvement and character.
Yeah, they didn't realize that I was still with us. It might have been wishful thinking on their part.
That's the thing that jumped out at me about this item.
Hilarious. And the great part about it is I haven't had to go back there because they think I'm gone. So, but it's funny.
Save them from having to re-engrave the thing, I guess.
Yeah, they have a Hall of Fame up there, and the number one name on it, when we were in school was Woody Allen. He was about 10 years older, and nobody else on that wall would anybody have ever heard of unless you happen to be from that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Since then, they have added to the wall Hakeem Jeffries from the House of Representatives. He's probably now... I think he's probably moved into the number 2 spot and bumped me down to the number 3 spot on the wall. But I don't think they've got a Hakeem Jeffries Memorial Award yet.
And also, you were big on the dog park out at White Rock Lake, which is a...
We just did that.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Screw me then.
But it was a really great thing.
We're live.
Yeah, we're
we are? Okay. Yeah. All right. Also, the mental health thing that you're into, the mental health advocacy is, you did take a leave of absence in the 2023 season.
Yeah, I missed the first 4 months of the season. I was having all kinds of issues with insomnia, which led to anxiety, which led to depression, which led me to be on a regimen of medications that prevented me from having the mental acuity to do this job. It was really frustrating. And fortunately, by the end of July of that year, I had gotten it back together and was able to do the last 2 months of the season and the whole postseason run. But I had had issues in the past with depression. My family has had it for generations. And unless you've been through it, you really don't appreciate what it is. You can try and explain to people that you realize your life is going great, that you have everything you could possibly want, but you still wake up every day and you're sad, incredibly sad. A lot of days you don't feel like getting out of bed. Or if you have the insomnia, you lay in bed but you don't sleep. It's just a nightmare. So I'm involved in a number of charities that deal with that. Most specifically now with the Grant Halliburton Foundation, which provides mental health programs in area schools and suicide prevention programs, and they have been very successful in cutting down the suicide rate in the schools in which they participate.
That's fantastic.
How is this for you these days? Is it any better for you?
Yeah, I'm much better now. It's great. The thing that when you deal with this, you're constantly fearing in the back of your mind is, well, I could fall into the black hole again. It's happened multiple times before. So you just try and do the things that they tell you to do to maintain your mental health, which includes eating right and sleeping well and exercising and talking. I talk to a therapist every week, and whatever's bothering me, whatever's on my mind, we get a chance to talk about, and I'm a strong advocate of talk therapy.
Yeah. I have trouble sleeping too, and always have. And every now and then I'll wonder if somehow that's connected to something going on in my mind that I'm not aware of or that I'm suppressing.
Well, the subconscious is awfully powerful. But do you have monkey mind when you're not sleeping? Are there a million thoughts going through your mind?
There can be.
Have you listened to him?
It's hard. And, fortunately now, there are so many different sleep aids. I don't recommend the prescription ones because they're terribly addictive. And, I did run into that for a while. But the CBD products now, which are, completely legal, have helped a lot of people. And there are a variety of other herbal things that, companies have come up with. And of course, in the States where THC is legal, the THC gummies for sleep are amazingly effective.
Yeah.
We've done a show on THC.
Yeah?
Kind of have.
About THC or on THC?
On it. Without fully realizing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Did you take some CBD gummies?
We
that
did
had
a remote
THC
at remote at a CBD emporium that we might not have realized there's Delta 8 and Delta 9.
Uh-huh.
We thought we were getting Delta 8. We got
the
Delta 9. And that was a fun show.
It's powerful stuff.
Me and Rhines and Jeff Kavanaugh and Shippy
Oh, wow.
all were pretty much tripping.
Giggly.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, we had fun. I'm not sure if the show was good, but we had a great time.
Is that show still
show.
available to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
I'll send you a link.
Great. I definitely want to hear that.
I had not done anything like that for years and years and years. And I had a couple blasts of that stuff, and for a while I was okay, but then I started noticing that I was feeling kind of unusual, shall we say. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, man, this is not right. And finally I realized and just said, man, I'm high as shit.
Literally, middle of the show, somebody asked him a question. He goes, I don't know. I'm high as shit.
And we're trying to keep a conversation going. We tried to end the show about 15 minutes early, and we're told, no, we have a deal with the place, so you have to go the full 2 hours. I'm like, okay, we're going to try this.
I think you got one more topic out.
Yeah.
That was it.
Then we're just like,
I think one more thing out, and then it's all right, gotta go.
Yeah. I think
About Pokemon and Wigglytuffs.
yeah.
I just rewatched that show the other day.
So
I'm
you
so
think
sorry.
You got another book in you?
I don't think so. I think I'm too lazy. If I do another one, and I've got hundreds of notes in my phone for a possible memoir book. If I do it, I will do an as told to book where, one of my friends who's a talented writer will actually write the book. I'll tell the stories and they can organize it into a book.
Yeah.
It's too much work. And for me to do the whole project like I've done on the other ones. But at some point, maybe when I finally retire, and I have so much free time, I'm looking for something to do with it, I'll do it. But right now, even to take the time to sit down and tell the stories to somebody seems to me to be too overwhelming. And I'm basically too lazy.
Yeah. You do have 3 books. There was The Man Who Stole First Base, Tales from Baseball's Past, which was a feature that you did before the games. I don't know if you still do them or not.
No, we don't do them anymore.
But Back in the day, you did.
Yeah, the radio station decided, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago, that the audience did not have the attention span to listen to a 2-minute story
Oh my gosh.
without any sound bites or other
How very
interruptions.
radio is that?
And that was 2 minutes with a break in the middle. So there's really only a minute at a time. And they decided that that wasn't good radio anymore, and that was the end of that.
There was also the night Wilt scored 100. Now, that's my favorite.
Yeah, that was 100 points.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking points.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was based on a similar show that I actually did as a pregame show for the Mavericks when they were on WBAP. That was called A Page from Basketball's Past,
Yep.
which is a series of anecdotes about the NBA, a lot of it about early NBA that people don't know too much about. And that was a lot of fun. Researching that was a lot of fun. The baseball book, The Man Who Stole First Base, Craig Wright, who used to work for the Rangers
Right,
as
remember
a
him.
sabermetrician analyst, he did all the research and a lot of the writing for that, whereas the basketball book I did all by myself. I spent pretty much a whole off season in the Sports Illustrated library in New York researching that and writing that book, and that was really fun.
Do you have any memories of the NBA of those days?
Well, I do really well, because growing up in New York, we would go to Madison Square Garden with a student ID card and get in for, I'm not making this up, 50 cents to sit in the balcony for a Knicks game, $1 for a New York Rangers game. And the Knicks were terrible then. And you went there to see the other teams.
Mm-hmm.
And on Tuesday nights, a few times each year, people don't believe me when I tell them this, they had NBA doubleheaders at Madison Square Garden where the Knicks would play in the second game, and the first game would always have one of the marquee teams, either the Celtics with Bill Russell, the Hawks with Bob Pettit and Cliff Hagan, or the Lakers with Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, whatever team Wilt was playing for at the time. They would play in the first game at 6:30, and then the next game would be at 8:30. And we loved those. For 50 cents, we could see 2 NBA games.
Talk about basketball nirvana.
It was spectacular.
That's fantastic.
And we would hop on the subway. It cost 15 cents then from Brooklyn. It was about 30 minutes into the city to Madison Square Garden, and it was incredible. And
I bring this up because around here there's a thought that there was no NBA around here until the Mavericks showed up, and that is patently not true, because back in those days, we got NBA basketball every Saturday, every Sunday on TV. I saw Wilt Chamberlain. I saw Bill Russell. I saw Jerry West. I saw Dolph Shays. I saw
the Syracuse Nationals.
Yes, Syracuse Nationals. I saw any star from back then, Elgin Baylor, that you might care to name.
The Cincinnati Royals with Oscar and Jack Twyman.
That's right.
Oscar was still, for me, he was the greatest player I've ever seen. I don't know if he could compete with guys now. He was Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan. And I guess I think he was only 6'5", so I don't know how he would survive in the game today, but he could do everything. And he was always playing for the other team. But it was kind of like Willie Mays. I wasn't ever rooting for the Giants, but you just loved watching this guy play.
Yeah.
Oscar Robertson is who I'm referring to as Oscar.
I just had to mention that because every time the NBA of that era comes up, people look at me like they have no idea what I'm talking about. They probably don't. They do think there is this thought that the NBA was not a factor in the sports scene around here at all at that time, and I'm here to tell you that it's not.
And the St. Louis Hawks were the closest team, right?
Yes, they were.
Geographically?
They were.
Yeah.
And then you did the Rangers' authorized history in 1997.
Yeah.
I can scarcely think of anybody better to do that.
Well, that was really fun. That was a 25-year anniversary book, and it was a coffee table book. And there, too, I spent a whole off-season researching it, and fortunately the Rangers had a really good archive of photographs and newspaper articles. They actually have these giant scrapbooks with every newspaper article that had ever been written about the Rangers, going back to 1972. That's cool. And for photographs, they had quite a collection, and I was able to spend a week in the garage of Linda Kay, the legendary photographer,
yes,
who gave me access to all of her negatives and all of her prints, which were fortunately fairly well organized, at least by year. And a lot of the stuff in the book came from that.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was an education for me too, because I wasn't here from 72 to 76, 76, 77, 78. I was here, but I wasn't working. So I really did need to kind of get up to speed on some of the early years of the Rangers.
What does 2023 mean to you?
Baseball heaven. That was, I thought getting to the World Series in 2010 was it. That's kind of how I felt when we broadcast that World Series against the Giants. Didn't even really care whether we won or not. Then after the 2011 disappointment, and thinking after that I would never get a chance to do another World Series, and certainly would never see the Rangers win a World Series during my career, if not my lifetime, to actually win in 2023 was, it was so rewarding, so satisfying, not only for me, but for all of the Ranger fans who had suffered through all those years. People like you had been there from the beginning, all of us who went through the horror of 2011 and somehow, I think, came closer together as a community as a result of that, but still would certainly rather it had turned out differently. I still sometimes can't believe it actually happened.
No, I can't either. It's always seemed like on that last out, that call strike 3, with Josh Sborz out there on the mound, that just for a tick, just for the tiniest tick, time stopped, and everybody was looking at the umpire to see what he was going to do, see if he was going to give him that strike.
Yeah.
And just for it's almost like the guy just took a second and said, "I'll screw it, strike 3." But it's the greatest night of my sports life, and it will never be topped.
Yeah, such an incredible moment. All the things that had to happen for them to win, the confluence of events, just as improbable as all the things that had to happen for the Rangers to lose in 2011, including the rain out that wasn't a rain out, and Nelson Cruz not being replaced in right field, and Wash making a pitching change after the 10th inning when he shouldn't have, and bringing in Mark Lowe, and so many other things that shouldn't have happened that had to happen for the Rangers to lose.
Yeah.
Who are some of your favorite Rangers off the beaten path? I mean, guys that we might not think about, but that you liked either personally, or you thought there was something to their game that most people didn't see, or something, anything like that.
Well, first starting with the guys who were like my closest friends were the guys from 1979, my first year, who were the same age as we are. Buddy Bell, Jim Sundberg and I, our birthdays are about 3 days apart. Charlie Huff. And Charlie is probably the funniest guy who's ever played for the Rangers. Just an incredible offbeat sense of humor. But when I think of some of the crazy guys that we had Oil Can Boyd.
Oh, yeah.
For a while. We had Rick Leach, the Michigan quarterback, who disappeared for 2 days in New York. And nobody knew where he was, and we still don't really know exactly what happened. I wasn't.
God, I'd forgotten about that.
I was not working during the Roger Moret incident, but I was already here, where he went into a catatonic state, holding his shower shoe in front of his locker. I was not working during the Lenny Randle era, the punch out of Frank Lucchese, but that was probably one of the more incredible moments. We had a guy named Glenn Brummer, who was a catcher, who would say the goofiest things, who nobody's probably ever heard of. In fact, the backup catchers always tended to be really interesting to me. They were generally really bright guys and really fun to talk to. We had Matt Trainer for a year, who was married to the Olympic volleyball champion Misty May Trainer, and that they were an incredible couple to to get to know. One of my favorites. Dave Valley, who's done some of the telecasting for the Rangers, backup catcher to Pudge in 1996 when the Rangers won their first title and made the fiery speech that, motivated the team down the stretch. He's been one of my favorite guys. He started a charity in the Dominican Republic that has provided microloans to women there to start businesses long before microloans became a popular thing. He's been one of my favorites as well.
What music are you into these days?
All different kinds. I mentioned Lake Street Dive, but this year I've really been exposed to some new bands, listening to 91.7 KXT. I think it might be the best radio station for music in the country. I just love it, and I learned so many new bands. There's a band from Britain that I love called the Heavy Heavy that I recently saw play at the Kessler. Which, by the way, is also my favorite music venue anywhere in the country. These Sacred Souls, I don't know if you've heard them. They're like it's kind of a Bastards of Soul sort of a sound. Yeah. But they're out of San Diego. They've become, very popular. I've been listening a lot to them. Some of the more popular artists that people probably know, I've gotten to like Teddy Swims. I'm a big fan of Teddy Swims. But probably the under-the-radar guy who I could most easily recommend for your listeners is John Mook. You spell it M-U-Q. And he is a guy from Uganda who moved to Austin about 8 years ago and has this incredible blend of folk music, world music, reggae, and is just a really wonderful, warm soul. And I actually had him come up to Dallas and play a couple of shows at my house in November. But he's probably my number one find of 2024, John Mook, M-U-K. That's him.
Nice.
Boy, look at Shoopy. How honored is he?
I just did a quick search on Spotify. It's really not that special. It's kind of what I do.
But you thought to do it. That's the thing. That's what sets you apart.
Fair enough.
So did you see the Yacht Rock doc?
I did. I liked it a lot. And I've read conflicting reviews about it, and I don't understand why anybody would not like it.
I don't either.
It was tremendous. I learned so much from it too, and I know you're a big Steely Dan guy, and the whole connection between Steely Dan and the rest of the yacht rock movement was fascinating to me. Did you know all that stuff?
I knew a good bit of it. Now I'm not sure that I would classify Steely Dan as yacht rock. And this is not me being an elitist or anything like that, because I don't see anything wrong with yacht rock. I love all the rest of those guys. I love Toto. I love everybody else that was in that thing.
Loggins and Messina.
Yeah, I love Kenny Loggins, and love with or without Messina. But I've always felt like Steely Dan was a little bit apart and separate. They're like them in form, but not really content.
Yeah.
The chord structures that Steely Dan uses is way, way different than what most of those guys are about. And the lyrical content of Steely Dan is just otherworldly anyway. I mean, nobody can make any sense of it. That's one of the things that I love most about them.
Right. I loved all the Michael McDonald stuff in there, too. I'm
a big Michael McDonald guy.
Huge Michael McDonald guy still.
Who are some of the guys who have played on teams other than the Rangers that you found intriguing for whatever reason?
Dan Quisenberry, the reliever for the Kansas City Royals, was probably the funniest guy who I've met in baseball. No matter what question you asked him, he had a really funny response. I love talking to him. Kirby Puckett is probably my all-time favorite non-Ranger player, just because he was so outrageously warm and friendly. He never forgot the name of the media guy, which is, an incredible talent. I mean, I interviewed him once on a pregame show, and after that, he always would greet me on the field by my name, or he even made up a nickname and started calling me Nade. I don't know, but I love the way he played. I love the guys who play with a smile on their face.
I do too.
The way that Elvis and Adrian did, and Kirby was certainly one of those guys. Ken Griffey Jr. was another one. I didn't get to know Griffey very well, although I certainly met him a few times. But the guys who I did get to know well were the guys who I would have on the pregame show regularly over the years, who were the outstanding players in the league. And many of them wound up going to the Hall of Fame. Dave Winfield was one of them. He was a really bright guy, really fun to talk to. Paul Molitor was another one, Hall of Fame, and became a manager. Wade Boggs, one of my favorites. Loved Don Mattingly. When Mattingly had that home run streak that was broken here in Arlington, I felt really bad because he had agreed to do a pregame show with me before that game. He had tied the record the night before, 8 straight games with a home run. And then before the last game of that series, the Sunday game, he had agreed to come in early and tape a pregame show with me. And we did the pregame show, and then he went out and didn't get a home run that night, and I felt really bad. Like I somehow jinxed him. George Brett was another of my favorites.
Yeah.
Really, really fun to talk to. I wish we had interleague play earlier, so I could have met some of the great National League players in those years. Who some of them I never even got to see play, and certainly never got to meet.
Well, Eric, you are one of a kind, man.
Hey, thanks.
You really are. You are one of a kind. And I cannot thank you enough for doing this. Okay, I've been given the book Limerick by Eric Nadel.
Oh, this was my last venture into the publishing world. Yeah, book of base. Actually, they're not all baseball limericks. Some of them are about music. There's one in there about Lake Street Dive, and there's one in there about the Kessler. But it was really fun. We did that book during a really bad Ranger season where we felt we needed diversionary tactics. So we were writing a limerick each day about the 7th inning of the game and decided we'd put them in a book and raise money for the Rangers Foundation. And we got a great illustrator named Arthur James, a local guy, and just had a tremendous time doing that book.
He also wrote this. I go back to the zoo days with Rhyner, long before he became a hardliner. Mike was one funny fellow with Rhodey and Labella. Morning radio's never been finer. These days his hair is all gray. That does not mean that Rhyner won't stay. If he leaves petty theft, we would all be bereft. Hope the old wolf ain't going away.
And you haven't gone away.
No.
You just moved.
Yep, still here. Still doing this now. Man, thank you so much for this.
Thanks for having me. This is really fun.
All right, the great Eric Nadel.
Yeah.
We would love to know what you think about this. You can let us know. You can hit me on social media. I'm out there all over the place. You can hit us at, hit me on email at theoldgraywolf.com. And that's it.
Patreon and all that is probably where people would really be focused.
Stalk you at a Petty Theft Show. Join us at Patreon. Get into what we're doing here because this is what we call your dark companion. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.
Nice. That was great.
All right.
All right. I'm going to go take my pants off.
It's funny, Arthur James's kid is one of my stepson's best friends.
Your Dark Companion
really? Yeah,
is a
let's go
Stolen
sing
Water
Rita's
media
Yeah.
presentation.
Art's a great guy.
Art's awesome. So, I met him when he was working on the mural.